The grocery store lights were too bright for such a late hour. They buzzed softly above the long aisles, shining down on tired faces and half-empty carts. It was the end of the month, the time when money felt thinner than air and hope felt just as weak. Maria stood in line near the front, her shoulders tense, her head slightly lowered. She wore a faded jacket that had seen many winters, and her shoes were worn at the edges. Beside her cart stood her 5-year-old son, Leo, holding the metal handle with both hands as if it were the only solid thing in the world. The cart was not full. Just milk, bread, eggs, a small pack of rice. Nothing extra, nothing sweet, only what was needed to survive a few days. Maria reached into her pocket and pulled out her wallet. She already knew how much money was inside, but she counted it again. Slowly, carefully, as if the numbers might change if she wished hard enough. They didn't. Her heart sank. She looked at Leo. His eyes were bright, innocent, trusting. He believed in her. That belief felt heavier than any bag of groceries. Ahead of her, the cashier scanned items for the customer before them. Beep, beep. The sound felt sharp, like a clock counting down to something painful. When it was her turn, Maria pushed the cart forward. The cashier glanced up. His name tag read Evan. He looked tired, too. Dark circles under his eyes, a face that had learned responsibility early. "Hello," Evan said politely. "Hi," Maria replied, her voice barely above a whisper. He began scanning the items. Beep, beep, beep. Leo watched with quiet excitement. "Mom, is this for dinner?" he asked. Maria forced a smile. "Yes, baby." The screen flashed the total. Maria froze. Her fingers tightened around her wallet. She opened it and laid the money on the counter. Coins and a few bills, not enough. She counted once, then again. Her hands started to shake. "I'm sorry," she said softly, her cheeks burning. I don't have enough." Evan paused. "You're short a little," he said gently. People behind her shifted. Someone cleared their throat, someone sighed. The line felt like a wall pressing in on her back. Maria swallowed hard. She picked up the milk and the bread. Her hands trembled as she placed them aside. "Can I return these?" she asked. "Just the milk and the bread." The words tasted bitter. Milk and bread were the most basic things. Asking to return them felt like admitting failure, not just as a shopper, but as a mother. Leo looked up at her, confused. "Mom," he asked, "why are you putting them back?" Maria knelt down quickly. She smiled again, but her eyes were wet. "Mommy made a mistake," she said. "It's okay." Leo frowned. "Did I do something bad?" That question broke something inside her. "No," she said quickly, her voice cracking. "Never, never that." Evan watched the scene silently. He saw how Maria stood between her child and the truth. He saw how her shoulders carried more weight than they should. He saw fear, shame, and love all mixed together. To many in the galaxy, humans were loud, violent, and divided. But moments like this were where the truth lived, quiet, painful human moments. Maria stood up again and looked at Evan. "I'm sorry for the trouble," she said. "You can take them." She pushed the items closer to him, already preparing herself to walk out with less than she came for. Evan didn't move. The scanner was silent. The line was silent. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then Evan looked at her, not with pity, not with judgment, but with understanding. And he shook his head. "No," he said. Maria blinked, confused. "No," she repeated. Evan's voice was calm but firm. "I can't take these back." Her heart sank deeper. She nodded slowly, embarrassment flooding her face. "I understand," she said. "I'll just go then." She reached for the cart. But Evan's hand moved first. "No," he said again, stronger this time. And that single word, spoken with kindness instead of cruelty, was the first crack in the wall that surrounded Maria's world. To be continued, Maria's chest heaved as she stepped back from the counter. She felt trapped between pride and desperation, a mother carrying the invisible weight of failure. Her fingers lingered on the edge of the cart, unsure whether to pull it away or leave it behind. Leo watched her carefully, sensing the tension in the air but unable to understand the storm inside her. Evan looked at her with quiet patience. He could see the small trembles in her hands, the redness around her eyes, the way her shoulders slumped as though she had been carrying the world all by herself. And in that moment, he understood something important. This wasn't just about groceries. This was about dignity, about pride, about survival. "You don't have to return them," Evan said gently. His voice was calm, almost soft, but it carried a weight Maria had not expected. She blinked, caught off guard. I can't," she whispered, shaking her head. "I don't have the money. I shouldn't have taken them in the first place. I just—" Her voice faltered, breaking into a sob she could barely hold back. Leo reached out and tugged at her sleeve. "Mom, it's okay," he said in his small, earnest voice. "It's okay, right?" Maria bent down to hug him. She could feel his little heart beating fast against her chest. "Yes, baby," she said, trying to force a smile. But inside, shame pressed down on her like heavy bricks. She had promised him food and warmth and comfort, and now, in front of strangers, she felt as though she had failed at the simplest thing, keeping him safe. Evan noticed the desperation. He had worked here for years, scanning groceries, hearing stories, watching lives pass through the checkout lines. But rarely had he felt the kind of quiet agony that radiated from a person like Maria. He knew that this moment could change everything for her if he acted. Without thinking twice, he reached into his own pocket. The motion was simple, unremarkable to the casual observer, but the meaning was profound. He pulled out his card and spoke calmly. "I'll pay for it," he said. Maria froze, her lips parted, but no sound came out. She shook her head quickly, stepping back. "No, you don't have to. I can't let you." Evan shook his head firmly. "You can and you will." The line of people behind them went quiet. A few eyes widened, some softened. The sound of the scanner beeped faintly as Evan quickly swiped his card and pressed approve. The payment went through. Maria stared at the screen, unable to comprehend it. The milk, the bread, the eggs, everything she had been ready to return, everything she had felt so guilty about was hers to keep, paid for by a stranger who didn't even know her. Tears streamed down her face. She could feel Leo's small hands on her cheeks, trying to wipe them away. "Mom, why are you crying?" he asked, confusion and concern mixing in his tone. "Because someone cares, baby," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Someone cares about us." Evan watched quietly, giving her space. He didn't speak again, he didn't need to. Sometimes words are useless. Actions say everything. People in line stared, some with disbelief, some with quiet admiration. One elderly woman whispered a soft, "God bless you, young man," and Maria felt a warmth she had not felt in months, not in weeks, not in days, a warmth that came from human kindness. A simple act, small in size but enormous in meaning. Maria bent over, scooping the items back into her cart. She felt a weight lift from her chest, almost as if she could breathe for the first time in days. She wanted to say thank you, but the words felt too small, too weak. And yet she knew she had to try. I don't know how to thank you," she said finally, her voice trembling. Evan shrugged, smiling slightly. "You don't have to," he said softly. "It's just what humans do. Sometimes we help each other." Maria looked at him, seeing something in his eyes she would never forget. Understanding, compassion, and quiet strength. The kind of strength that didn't roar or strike, but simply existed in choosing the right thing when it mattered most. Leo clutched her hand tightly. "Mom," he said, "he's nice, really nice." Maria nodded, holding back fresh tears. "Yes, baby," she whispered, "very nice." In that moment, Maria realized something profound. Life would continue to be hard. Bills would come. Challenges would never end. But the human capacity for kindness, even from strangers, was a force that could make a mother feel strong again, even when the world felt like it was pressing down on her. And for Evan, that quiet choice, paying for groceries for a mother and child, was a reminder of something too easily forgotten, that humans, at their core, can choose compassion over indifference. That simple act of generosity, in a small corner of a busy grocery store, became more than money exchanged. It became hope. It became proof that humanity was capable of greatness in ways that no technology, no power, no war could ever measure. Maria pushed the cart forward slowly, still stunned, still grateful, still trying to find words that would never fully express what she felt. But in her heart, one truth was clear. For the first time that day, she believed that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. To be continued, Maria walked slowly through the checkout lane, her hands wrapped around the cart handle as if it could anchor her to reality. Leo sat quietly, occasionally glancing at her with his innocent, trusting eyes. He didn't fully understand what had happened, only that the scary tension from a few moments ago had lifted. But Maria felt it still, like a pulse running through her chest that refused to settle. She glanced at Evan, who continued scanning items for the next customer. He didn't make a show of what he had done. There were no applause, no congratulations, just a quiet, steady presence, a man doing the right thing because it was right. Maria couldn't stop staring. She had expected judgment, coldness, even irritation, but instead she had found kindness. Real, raw, human kindness. The line behind her began moving again and people returned to their business. But Maria could feel their eyes occasionally flicking toward her, some curious, some quietly amazed. Maybe they didn't understand, maybe they did, but it didn't matter. What mattered was this. For a moment her shame had been replaced by relief. Leo leaned forward, pointing at the bread and milk. "Mom, we can eat dinner now?" he asked, his voice small and hopeful. Maria smiled, her tears threatening to spill again. "Yes, baby," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Dinner is ours tonight." She paused for a moment, looking at Evan again. She wanted to say more, wanted to explain herself. Wanted to tell him that she wasn't lazy, that she wasn't careless, that she had tried so hard just to keep life together for her son. But words felt useless. Instead, she nodded softly. "Thank you," she said. It was small, insufficient, but it was honest. Evan smiled faintly, just enough to acknowledge her gratitude. "Take care," he said quietly. Then he turned back to the next person in line, scanning items as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Maria felt her heart tighten. The world was still hard, bills were still looming, nights would still be sleepless. But this moment, small as it was, reminded her of something she had almost forgotten. Humans, her own species, had the power to change lives with a single act of compassion. They say the galaxy judges humans by their wars, their greed, their destructiveness. But in moments like this, Maria realized that the galaxy would miss the truth. Humans could also be tender, generous, brave in quiet ways that mattered far more than strength or weaponry. Evan had not saved the world. He had saved something else, something precious, hope. As she walked toward the doors, her cart full of groceries and her heart full of gratitude, Maria couldn't stop thinking about how fragile life could be. One small mistake, a few dollars short at the register, could have left them hungry, hopeless, defeated. And yet one small choice, a stranger covering the cost, had restored faith, had restored dignity, had restored the possibility of joy. Leo reached up and took her hand. "Mom, can we have pancakes tomorrow?" he asked, his voice full of excitement. Maria laughed softly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Yes, baby," she said. "We can have pancakes tomorrow." The sun outside was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the parking lot. The world looked the same, but everything had shifted for Maria, for Leo. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she felt a flicker of possibility. Maybe kindness could exist, even in a world that often felt harsh and unforgiving. As they approached their car, Maria looked back at the store. Evan was still inside, working quietly. She wanted to tell him that his kindness mattered more than he could know, that he had changed more than a grocery bill, that he had reminded her, and Leo, that humans could still choose to care. But she knew he probably didn't need to hear it. He had already chosen. That was enough. Inside her chest, something heavy had lifted. She felt lighter, braver. And she understood something important. The weight of kindness was not just in giving. It was in choosing deliberately to put someone else's need before your own. As Maria buckled Leo into his car seat, she whispered softly, "We'll be okay, baby. We really will." And for the first time in a long while, she truly believed it. Even as the night settled around them, the lesson remained clear. Humanity's greatest strength was not in wealth, or power, or intelligence. It was in moments like this, when one person decided to be good simply because it was the right thing to do. And Maria would carry that lesson for the rest of her life. To be continued, the grocery store returned to its usual rhythm after Maria and Leo left. The hum of conversation, the soft beeping of scanners, the shuffle of carts, it all continued as if nothing had happened. But for those who had witnessed the exchange, something had shifted. Small, almost invisible, but powerful nonetheless. The elderly woman in line who had muttered a quiet blessing earlier kept glancing toward the counter, a soft smile lingering on her face. She had lived long enough to know the weight of struggle, the sharp sting of hardship, and the unexpected relief that came from human kindness. Watching Evan act without expectation, without self-interest, reminded her that the world was not only harsh, but also capable of goodness in its smallest, quietest forms. In the next aisle, a young man loading his groceries into his car paused. He thought about the mother and child he had just seen. He thought about the simplicity of their need and the courage it took to ask for help. When he returned to the store, he handed the cashier an extra $20 bill and asked it be used for the next person who might need it. He did not announce it. He did not seek recognition. He simply did what humans often did when they were moved, acted quietly to make a difference. Outside, Maria and Leo walked through the parking lot. Maria could still feel the warmth of Evan's gesture running through her chest. It was more than money. It was trust. It was dignity. It was hope. Leo skipped ahead, holding a small loaf of bread, proud of their victory over what had felt like an impossible moment. "Mom," Leo said, "do you think people are always nice like him?" Maria paused, looking down at her son. His innocent question hung in the air. She wanted to protect him from the harsh truth, but she also wanted him to understand the beauty of humanity. "Some people," she said softly, "choose to be, and that is what matters." Evan continued scanning groceries inside, unaware that his single act was inspiring others. A mother behind Maria smiled quietly at him, then turned and hugged her daughter as if the kindness she had witnessed was a lesson she wanted to pass on. A young couple whispered to each other, making plans to volunteer at a local shelter. No one made a scene, but the ripples of human compassion spread like invisible waves, touching hearts without anyone noticing. In a corner of the store, the manager watched the scene unfold in his mind. No rules had been broken, no protocol ignored. Yet he realized something important. Sometimes humanity was stronger than procedure. Sometimes the right action was not written in manuals, but lived in the choices of those willing to care. For Maria, the walk to the car was filled with quiet reflection. She thought about all the times she had struggled, all the nights when hope seemed a distant memory, all the moments she had wanted to give up. And now she realized something. Even in a world that often seemed indifferent, there were humans like Evan, quietly choosing kindness over judgment, generosity over apathy. Leo tugged at her hand. "Mom, we can make pancakes tomorrow, right?" he asked again, his voice full of excitement. Maria laughed softly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Yes, baby, pancakes tomorrow." She squeezed his hand tightly. "We'll be okay." The small parking lot of the grocery store became a stage for human resilience. No one applauded. No one posted videos. Yet the act of generosity had already begun to spread, inside the hearts of those who witnessed it, in small ripples that might touch lives far beyond what anyone could imagine. Somewhere across town, an older man who had noticed the line paused on his way home, thinking about the mother and child, thinking about the cashier who had quietly helped them. That night, he donated groceries to a local family in need. And across the city, another act of kindness took place, inspired by the same story, though the people involved didn't even know it. Maria buckled Leo into the car, ready to go home. She looked back once, toward the store where a stranger's choice had changed her life. She whispered softly, "Thank you," knowing the universe itself could carry the gratitude she could not fully express. Humanity in these small, quiet moments revealed its greatest power, the ability to lift others, not for glory, not for reward, but because it was the right thing to do. And though the galaxy might see humans as weak, fragile, or flawed, it would never see the strength in their hearts, the courage to choose kindness when it mattered most. That day, Maria and Leo went home with groceries, but also with something more enduring: hope, faith, and a belief in the unseen threads of goodness that connected humanity. The ripples had begun, and for those willing to notice, the world seemed a little brighter, a little stronger, and infinitely more human. To be continued. Days passed after that night in the grocery store, but Maria could not forget the kindness she had received. Each time she looked at her pantry, she remembered Evan's quiet act, how he had refused to take back the groceries, how he had insisted on covering the cost. It wasn't just money, it was dignity restored, hope returned, and a reminder that even in the darkest moments, humans could be extraordinary. She thought about Leo. Every morning his small hand reached for hers, trusting that she could protect him, feed him, keep him safe. That trust was sacred, fragile, and heavy. Maria had carried it alone for so long, but Evan's choice had reminded her that sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes strangers could be the hands that lift you when your own strength falters. Maria went back to the store the next week, not for groceries, but to say thank you. She searched for Evan behind the counter, but he was busy helping another customer. She left a small note by his register. "You saved more than groceries that day. Thank you for believing in us." It was a simple gesture, but it was her way of returning a piece of the humanity he had shown her. Across town, unseen, the ripples continued. The elderly woman in line bought extra milk for her neighbor. The young man who had been inspired to pay for the next customer donated clothes to a shelter. A mother volunteered to bring meals to a homeless family. None of them knew Maria. None of them knew Leo. But one small act of kindness had set off a chain reaction, proving that compassion could spread faster than fear or hate. At home, Maria worked late into the night. She cleaned, cooked, and prepared lessons for Leo, doing everything she could to stretch the money she had. But she also allowed herself to breathe, to feel gratitude, and to remember that the world still held people who chose to act with love instead of indifference. That thought gave her strength. Leo watched her one evening as she prepared dinner. "Mom," he said, "I want to be like him." Maria froze. "Like who, baby?" "The man who helped us," Leo said, eyes wide. "I want to help people too, just like him." Maria knelt down beside him, taking his small hands in hers. "You can, Leo. You can be the kind of person who sees someone in need and chooses to help, even if it's hard. That's how humans are special. That's how you make the world better." And in that moment, Maria realized something profound. Human strength wasn't always measured in power, intelligence, or wealth. True strength lay in choices. In small moments when a person decided to lift another, to care without reward, to believe in the goodness of others. That strength could shape lives, inspire generations, and even ripple far beyond what one mind could imagine. Evan continued his life quietly, unaware of the chain he had started. To him, it was just helping a mother and child. But to Maria, to Leo, to countless others touched by the small wave of generosity, it was monumental. It was proof that humans had a unique gift, the ability to see another's pain and choose compassion over convenience. Maria often thought about how strange it was that such a simple act, paying for groceries, could feel revolutionary. But in a world that sometimes valued money over morality, efficiency over empathy, and judgment over understanding, Evan had done something rare. He had chosen humanity over indifference. And that choice lived on. Leo began to understand that life was full of challenges. There would be moments of hunger, moments of fear, moments of despair. But he also learned that there were moments of hope, of generosity, of courage quietly given without fanfare. And in those moments, humans were unstoppable. As Maria tucked Leo into bed that night, she whispered, "One day you'll be someone's Evan, Leo, and you'll make the world better without even realizing it." Leo smiled sleepily, clutching his blanket. "I'll try, Mom, I'll really try." Maria kissed his forehead. "That's all anyone can ever do." And in the quiet of their small apartment, the lesson settled in. The galaxy could watch humans with suspicion, expecting only greed or violence, but they would never fully understand this species. Humans were capable of acts so small yet so profound that they changed lives forever. They were fragile, yes, but also capable of extraordinary courage, empathy, and love. That evening, Maria closed her eyes, feeling lighter than she had in months. She had groceries, she had hope, and most importantly, she had the reminder that humans, at their core, were capable of greatness not through weapons or power, but through the quiet, unstoppable force of compassion. To be continued, years passed, but the memory of that night never left Maria. She thought about it often, not the groceries themselves, not the small bills, but the human kindness behind them. It had been a simple choice for Evan, yet for Maria and Leo, it had changed everything. That night had become a story she carried in her heart, a reminder that people could be good, even in a world that sometimes seemed full of harshness and indifference. Leo grew quickly. He learned to tie his shoes, ride a bike, and read books aloud. But most importantly, he learned about humanity through the small lessons his mother shared. Every time Maria helped a neighbor, volunteered at the school, or offered food to someone in need, she remembered Evan and the day he had chosen compassion over convenience. She explained to Leo that real strength wasn't measured by wealth or power. It was measured by how you treated others, especially when no one was watching. "Mom," Leo asked one evening as they walked home from the park, "why do some people help others and some don't?" Maria thought for a moment. "Some people forget what it feels like to need help," she said softly. "Some people are afraid, but the people who help, who choose kindness, they are the strongest. Stronger than anyone with money, stronger than anyone with power. They change lives without even trying to be heroes." Leo nodded, thinking about the man in the grocery store who had saved them. He remembered the way Evan had looked at them, not with pity, not with judgment, but with understanding and quiet courage. That image stayed with him, shaping the person he was becoming. Maria also noticed how kindness rippled in small ways. The neighbor who had received extra milk returned the favor with vegetables from her garden. A classmate of Leo's shared his lunch when someone forgot theirs. Even strangers in their neighborhood began helping each other quietly, inspired by examples they had seen or heard about. One act of human compassion could set off a chain reaction, touching lives far beyond the original moment. Maria worked hard to give Leo the life she could. She balanced jobs, bills, and parenting, but she never let stress and struggle make her forget the lesson of that night. Every time she felt defeated, she thought of Evan's quiet choice, and she found the strength to keep going, to keep helping others, to keep believing in humanity. One day, Leo came home from school with a story. A new student had moved into the class and was struggling. Leo had offered his pencil, shared his lunch, and helped the child feel welcome. Maria's heart swelled. She knelt down beside him. "Do you remember the man who helped us at the grocery store?" she asked. Leo's eyes lit up. "Yes, Evan." "Well," Maria said, "you were his echo today. You chose kindness just like he did. And that is the most powerful thing a human can do." Years later, Leo became a young man determined to make the world better. He studied hard, volunteered at shelters, helped children like himself who needed hope, and always remembered the quiet courage of one stranger who had changed his life. He understood something most humans never realized. Their species was remarkable not because of strength or technology, but because of compassion, empathy, and the choice to do good. Across the galaxy, if someone were watching, it would have been easy to underestimate humans. They fought, argued, and sometimes seemed selfish. But the truth, what they didn't see, was that humans could change the world with small, intentional acts of kindness. They could inspire generations, spark hope in despair, and make strangers believe in goodness again. Maria watched Leo one evening as he helped a neighbor carry groceries. She felt pride, yes, but also deep gratitude for the invisible threads connecting their lives to that one act of kindness from Evan. She knew that the galaxy might see humans as fragile or chaotic, but she also knew something stronger. Humans could choose to be extraordinary every single day. That lesson, the power of human empathy, was what Maria hoped Leo would carry into the world. Not for recognition, not for reward, but because the act of helping another person, even in the smallest way, defined what it meant to be truly human. And in the quiet of their home, Maria whispered a prayer of thanks, not just for Evan, but for humanity itself. For the species capable of love, courage, and generosity in the simplest, most profound ways. For the species that could lift others up, even when the world tried to push them down. For the species that, in the small acts of everyday life, showed a strength no alien weapon or cosmic force could ever match. To be continued. Years later, Maria sat in her small apartment, quietly sipping tea. The room smelled faintly of baked bread, a scent that always reminded her of that night, the night a stranger had chosen kindness over indifference, hope over despair. Leo, now a young man, moved around the kitchen preparing breakfast for both of them. He hummed softly, a sound full of life and confidence, a stark contrast to the fearful little boy who had once clung to his mother in that grocery store line. Maria watched him and smiled. She had seen him grow strong not just in body, but in spirit. He carried within him the lessons of that long-ago night: courage in kindness, dignity in compassion, and power in empathy. And she knew he would carry those lessons beyond their home, beyond their neighborhood, beyond even their city. One morning, Leo received a message from a friend at his new university. A student from another country was struggling, alone, hungry, and scared. Without hesitation, Leo arranged food, books, and support. He did it quietly, with no expectation of recognition, just as Evan had once helped them. Maria saw in him the same calm courage, the same quiet strength that had saved her family years before. It was in these small acts she realized that humanity's true greatness shone. Not in power, not in wealth, not in war, but in empathy, in the choice to lift another even when the world seemed indifferent. These small decisions rippled outward, touching lives far beyond the reach of the original act. One simple act of kindness could grow into a legacy, spanning years, cities, even generations. Maria thought back to Evan. She wondered if he ever knew the full impact of that night. Did he know how he had changed a mother's life? How he had restored hope to a frightened little boy? How he had set in motion ripples that would spread far and wide? Probably not. That was the beauty of human kindness. It needed no recognition. Its strength lay in its selflessness. Across the world, countless acts of quiet generosity unfolded each day. Someone paid for a stranger's groceries. Another person offered shelter. A student tutored a struggling classmate. These acts were small, almost invisible, but together they formed a pattern, a proof that humans, despite flaws and struggles, were capable of extraordinary goodness. Maria took a deep breath, feeling the weight of gratitude and awe. She had witnessed it firsthand. She had felt the shock of despair and the relief of compassion. She had seen how one human could change the course of another's life. And she knew, without a doubt, that the galaxy would never truly understand the force they had created. Humans were not the strongest in power, but they were unmatched in heart. Leo turned and caught her looking at him. "Mom," he said, "I think I understand now. It's not about being the richest or the strongest or the smartest. It's about caring. It's about choosing to help even when it's hard." Maria nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "Yes, baby," she whispered. "That is what makes humans powerful. That is what makes us worth protecting. That is what makes us extraordinary." She realized that Evan's small choice had become more than a single act. It had become a story, a lesson, a spark that inspired countless others to act with courage and compassion. That spark had grown into a quiet revolution, one life at a time. And now she saw it in her son. She saw it in herself. She saw it in humanity itself. For the galaxy watching, humans might have seemed fragile. They might have appeared weak, chaotic, or unpredictable. But in moments like these, their true strength was revealed. Humans could choose to love when hatred was easier. They could choose hope when despair surrounded them. They could choose compassion when apathy was convenient. And those choices, multiplied across a species, were unstoppable. Maria hugged Leo tightly. "One day the universe will see," she said softly. "They will see what we've always known, that humans, ordinary, fragile humans, are capable of greatness beyond measure, not because of what we build or destroy, but because of what we give." Leo smiled, holding on to the lesson and the love that had shaped him. "I'll remember," he said. "I'll make the world better just like him." Maria closed her eyes and whispered a quiet prayer of thanks. For Evan, for humanity, for the small acts that became legacies, for the strength that lived in quiet hearts, invisible but unstoppable. And in that simple truth, Maria knew the galaxy would be wrong if it ever underestimated humans. Because true power was not in domination, but in the courage to be good, and nothing in the universe could match that. The end, Sparkles.